Mary first crossed paths with Theodore when she was just 16. He was already 24, mature, composed, and completely out of reach. Ted happened to be Julia's older brother, and since the girls were in the same class, Mary often found herself around him. Like any smitten teenager, she followed him around with stars in her eyes. But Ted? He shrugged her off with a smirk, teasing her with names like kiddo and never taking her feelings seriously. But time has a funny way of flipping things around. 2 years down the line, on her 18th birthday, Mary opened the door to find Ted standing there, bouquet in hand. To say she was shocked would be putting it mildly. "Flowers? What's the occasion?" she asked, already reaching for a vase. "It's your birthday," he said with a smile, and just like that, leaned in and kissed her. That's how it all began. Later on, Ted confessed he'd always liked her, but back then she'd been underage and he didn't want to risk crossing a line. That kind of restraint, it won Mary over completely. A year later, he popped the question. Their wedding was simple, intimate even. Just family and a handful of close friends. No big fuss. Julia was over the moon. Her best friend and her brother tying the knot couldn't have asked for more. At that point, Mary was still in her second year of university. Ted, meanwhile, was hustling hard, juggling 2 jobs to make sure they were comfortable. He wanted Mary to focus on her studies without worrying about anything else. Life, for a while, was sweet. Of course, some raised their eyebrows in surprise, especially Ted's mom, who was wary of how young Mary was. "Ted, are you sure it's not too early?" she was saying. But she never stood in the way. Instead, she accepted Mary into the family and did her best to love her like a daughter. Despite being constantly exhausted, Ted carved out time for Mary. They had this shared love for movies, big screen, loud sound, popcorn in hand. For a couple of hours, it was like they stepped out of the real world and into their own little bubble. But that bubble, it burst. By her 3rd year, something in Mary shifted. She fell in with the wrong crowd. The late nights started piling up, lectures were missed, and the smell of booze clung to her like a warning sign. Julia tried to intervene, but Mary pulled away, brushing her off entirely. "They're dragging you down." One evening, Ted screamed, and there was desperation in his voice. But the more he tried to get her back, the more stubbornly she resisted. She left without saying a word, sometimes disappearing for several days. I had to forget about college. Then one day, Ted got a call from Mary's mom. Her voice was quiet, heavy. "Teddy, I don't know how to say this, but I think Mary is about to be kicked out of college." His heart sank. "What are we going to do?" her mother asked softly, though deep down, even she wasn't sure there was an answer. Mary's mother was a down-to-earth woman, humble, unpretentious. She hadn't had the chance to get a proper education herself and dreamed that her daughter would break that cycle, that Mary would carve out a better future. But the dream was slipping. That evening, the usual quiet at home shattered into yet another heated argument. Voices rose. Tension thick in the air. Ted, exasperated and heartbroken, told Mary she was throwing her life away. Mary, already on edge, exploded. "You don't get to tell me what to do with my life," she screamed, her voice bouncing off the walls. And then, crash, a dish went flying, splintering against the tile. "You didn't seem to think that when you came running to me," Ted shouted back. She didn't answer. Instead, his favorite coffee mug, the one she'd once gifted him with a cheeky note inside, sailed across the room and shattered against the wall, ceramic shards raining down like confetti after a bad joke. A few days later, Theodore came home from work, hoping for at least a quiet evening. But as he stepped through the door, he saw Mary by the closet, stuffing clothes into a bag. The weekend was just around the corner. "Where are you going?" he asked. His tone clipped. "Off with some friends. Just need a break," she replied casually, not even looking up. Ted had been through enough battles recently to know when one wasn't worth fighting. He just sighed, thinking that a night alone might actually bring him some peace. But before he could walk away, Mary paused and turned to him with an unexpected offer. "Want to come with us, just for a night? We'll sleep under the stars. Alex has the gear, Alina's bringing food, Konstantine's got tents and stuff. It'll be fun, like old times." For a split second, Ted felt something soften in his chest. Maybe this was her way of reaching out, of fixing things. He hesitated, then nodded. "All right," he said. She smiled, almost like the girl he used to know. "We're heading out in an hour." Later, Konstantin called with directions to the campsite. A remote little clearing in the woods. Ted punched the location into the GPS, started the car, and off they went. The group had a head start on the party. Bottles were already uncorked before they even got out of the car. Mary had to wait, since she'd ridden with Ted, and it clearly grated on her. But once they parked and set up, she didn't waste time catching up. She poured drink after drink like she was racing the clock. Ted, the oldest among them, instantly felt out of place. He tried to blend in, sipping a few beers, just to avoid looking like the uptight adult in the room, but his heart wasn't in it. The conversations around him were shallow, laughter loud and empty. He kept glancing at Mary, watching her dance barefoot near the fire, shouting over the music. Then suddenly, she wasn't there. He stood up, scanning the tree line, the darkened edges of the clearing. "Mary?" he called. No answer. Panic began to creep in. Was she just off taking a walk? Or had she actually wandered too far? Maybe she'd tripped somewhere. Or worse, gotten lost in the woods. A chill ran down his spine. "Mary," he called again, louder this time, but all he heard was the crackle of flames and the murmur of drunken chatter behind him. Stumbling slightly, Theodore pushed his way through the trees, calling out for Mary. That's when he spotted Max, the one guy in the group he'd never liked, and with good reason. Max was standing near a tree, his body moving with an unmistakable rhythm. As Ted got closer, his stomach dropped. Mary was there. Her back was against the trunk, her face half covered by the sleeve of her jacket, eyes wide and glazed. The scene didn't need words. It said enough. "Hey!" Ted roared, fury erupting from deep inside. Startled, Max jumped back, fumbling to pull up his pants. Mary, drunk and disoriented, scrambled to fix her clothes, her fingers clumsy and shaking. The shouting brought the rest of the group running. Some of the guys burst into laughter, too far gone to grasp the gravity of what they'd just witnessed. One girl, pale and trembling, started crying. She'd carried a torch for Max for ages, never realizing she was just another name on his list. Ted didn't say another word. He turned, walked back to the car, and drove off. His mind was a storm, his body numb. After a while, he pulled off the highway into a quiet spot, killed the engine, and just sat there. Sleep took him like a wave, sudden, heavy, dreamless. Morning broke with the sun glaring through the windshield. His phone, dead the night before, had come back to life while charging. 20 missed calls, all from Mary. He didn't bother calling her back. Instead, he dialed her father. "Come get her things," he said flatly. There was a long pause. No questions, no begging, just a quiet, resigned, "Okay." When her father arrived, Theodore filled him in. Blunt, honest, no sugarcoating. The older man said nothing, just nodded and helped carry the suitcase. Mary came home around dinner time. Her face fell when she saw the two men standing there. Her father, stone-faced, her husband silent, with all her belongings packed and ready on the doorstep. Ted's mother watched quietly from the hallway as he filed for divorce days later. "I told you she was too young," she muttered, more sad than smug. Mary's world collapsed quickly. Her so-called friends vanished overnight. Max never spoke to her again. Whispers and stares followed her at university. Even her professors seemed to judge her. Her parents took her back in, disappointed but unwilling to abandon her. Broken, ashamed, Mary cried for days. She promised to change, promised to pull herself together. And somehow, she did. 2 years later, she graduated from high school. Not with honors, but she graduated. Then, she left the city without saying a word, disappearing like smoke. As for Theodore, he eventually remarried, this time to someone his age, someone steady, kind, uncomplicated. They had twins, a boy and a girl, and life moved on. Now and then, late at night, he'd find himself thinking of Mary. He'd search for her online, typing her name into search bars, scanning photos and profiles, wondering if she was happy, if she'd healed. But she was nowhere to be found. Eventually, he stopped looking. Some doors, once closed, are meant to stay that way.